Hi, so this is a support video to show you how to set up your Ninja 2 with the 5D Mark III and things to watch out for. So the first thing is that there are two modes to the camera. There is the movie mode and the photography mode. You need to ensure that you're in movie mode, which we are here. If I flick it across to photography mode, now I can take still pictures. If I flick it back, now I'm in video mode. And so I've got my output here directly from the camera. Now you see I don't have my output on, I don't have the output onto the screen of the 5D Mark III. There's a reason for that. There is a camera setting which I have everything output at the moment to the Ninja. This mode is called no mirroring. Now in no mirroring mode, all of the camera displays will be output to the external monitor. So whether it's a Ninja or a different type of monitor that doesn't record, you can see all your settings. So if you're setting up separately to the 5D, then you can see what you're doing. If I change this now to be, if I keep it as no mirroring and I go to view the actual video image, you can see I have a full clean output. Now this is no mirroring mode. If I touch info, the info button, now I get the normal Canon outputs. There's 4 modes for the info button, everything on there with your histogram, and now nothing. So even in no mirroring mode, you can still record clean output. You just need to make sure that you've toggled through the info button to ensure that you don't have any overlay on the output. This is what you would normally see on the screen of the 5D. So no mirroring just exports everything. You can still get clean out by touching the info button a few more times. Now I'm going to actually go in and change the setting on the Canon to be always mirroring, because I know I'm going to be recording long term onto my Ninja. So you can see now what that's done is moved everything back to the 5D screen, and if I hit to show the output, now I've got full clean output here, and I've got all my controls here on the 5D. So that's the first thing to remember. Now that was in, where was it? In HDMI output and LCD mirroring on the 5th page of the camera setting. The second thing, so we've set up, we're on video mode. I'm saying mirroring out, you don't need to, as I've just shown you. The next thing to set up is the time code. Now, you'll notice the count up, I've got rec run. I'm going to do free run time code here because I like to see the time of day time code. I'm going to record the time code to the movie. You can also just do rec time, i.e. 0, 1, 2, 3 in time. But I'm going to record the time code to the internal card, and when I play back, I want it to play out the time code. You can see here there is another setting called HDMI, but I can't go to that. So what I'm going to do is remove the cable from the Canon, and the HDMI setting becomes enabled. If I go down to the HDMI setting now I can turn timecode on or off, and the rec command to the Ninja to record at the same time can be on or off. Now one thing to remember, if you want to record to both internal and external at the same time, then rec command definitely needs to be on. However, that means that when the camera triggers, the Ninja will trigger. What some people will want to do is not record internally to the camera and record only to the Ninja, because this gives you up to 30, 40 hours of recording to a hard disk. So if you don't want to record to the camera internally because you want long record times, longer than the memory card inside, then all you need to do is turn off the rec trigger and trigger the record from the Ninja. However, if you'd like to do both, which I'm going to do today, then I'm going to turn that on. Okay, now I've set up my time code. Everything's set up now. I'll go back to the main menu settings and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to plug it back in my HDMI cable. And I'm ready to go again. So if I hit start, which now says please put the output to the Ninja, now you can see my image here. If I wave my hand in front of the camera, you can see that I'm recording, or that I can see the image from the sensor. There's a few other menu settings that you need to be aware of. The next one is what format you're recording to. So I'm doing 24p here, and the next one is to go to your settings menu and go across to HDMI frame rate, I'm setting it to 24p. This setup will mean that when I output to the Ninja, I can change back to my main page and it will tell me that I'm 2398 24p. So it's 24p internal, 24p external, progressive from the sensor, which is usually exactly what you want. One thing to note here is if I want to do 50i, so firstly I'll change this to 50i. Secondly, I'll go back to my camera settings and I will adjust the frame rate. I'm going to do 25p in all I. So now I'm in 25p. Now if I hit please export my image from the sensor, now I have 50i. You can see I have time code from the camera, which is matching here. And I have 50i. Now you know that I was recording 25p. So in order to go to 25p, I simply touch the Ninja and now I'm 25p. It is reconstructing those 50i frames from the 24p frames and turning them into, from the 25p frames and turning them into 25p. So now I can record 25p. I'm going to leave it like this and I'm going to record 25p for today's demonstration. So if I want to monitor, now I go into monitor, you can see I've got a clean output there. Now, there's a few things that I can use here to set up my Ninja. Now, in order to get the time code going, I simply touch the time code on the home page and you can see my source is HDMI. I have other options, time of day, rec run, auto restart. Time of day is not what I want. I'm going to go to HDMI. So now I'm getting the time code from the HDMI. Canon and Sony are the only ones that actually give you this. Now, camera trigger, I'm going to change to Canon. This now means I can trigger record from the Canon when I start recording internally on the Canon. We developed this with Canon and it's a great feature. So here I am ready to record. There's a few functions in the Ninja that make it easy. We've got focus peaking, we've got zebra, false color, and we've got blue only. All of those functions can be used all at the same time, the monitoring function. So I'm in focus, I'm ready to roll. I want to see my time code, so I'm going to hit record. And you can see I just hit record on the Canon and on the Ninja at the same time. So I'm recording in 422 10-bit ProRes directly from the sensor. Now the sensor is 8-bit, however we record the color registries for 10-bit so that in post-production you don't get crushing of colors for titles and graphics when you're integrating them on the timeline in Final Cut, Adobe or Avid. Okay, so now I'm going to hit stop and I've just done my first record on the Canon and the Ninja. A few other things to remember is inside, this is our normal home page. If I come inside the menu settings, there's only one other setting I want to make you aware of, and that is that when I'm choosing my frame rate, that for 25p will always be 50i. So I just want to make sure that you guys remember that you can change it to 25p or you can record 50i on the Ninja. Either way, you're still coming from 25p frames. And that's the basic roundup of how we can use the Canon and the Ninja together. The last thing to remember is the audio. So I have a headphone audio out here, and I also have a headphone and a line-in audio here on the Ninja. If you connect the line out into the line in, then you can record the audio from the camera. This is okay. We recommend using a third-party XLR audio microphone type of solution, which has a line out straight to the Ninja, and we will lock audio frame accurately with the time code to the video. If you're coming from the Canon, something to be aware of is right now, when we go into the audio page, I have the 2 channels of audio over HDMI and I have the analog audio. In order to switch between, all I do is hit record on whichever one I've got a signal coming in on. So this, I'm recording 4 channels. I don't have any signal coming in. So I'm not going to record the HDMI because the Canon doesn't deliver HDMI audio. However, it does deliver analog audio and you can get the audio from another device like a BeachTech or a JuiceLink. We can gain the audio up and down. And just be aware that when you're recording, you should have the red bar on. If you want to monitor the audio, you should touch the headphone above the channels that you would like to monitor. So to get analog audio outcome out of the headphone jack into here, you can gain up and down both on the camera and on on the Ninja, you can see up here that there's an audio frame delay. Now, right now for the Canon, in the firmware that we tested originally, there was no audio delay over the headphone. However, in the release version, there is now a 4 to 6 frame delay, or the audio is in advance of the video. We can then delay the audio by a number of frames. In the current Ninja firmware, it does not do this. However, in June, we will release a new firmware that allows you to adjust the audio frame rates. In the meantime, if you're recording audio, you need to sync it up within your NLE package. So there's just a few things to remember about setting up the Canon and the Ninja.